Welcome to the Apex Insiders Push to Cash. We got two things: recap of last weekend's race, and then we're going to take you through our Ontario Honda Dealers Indy Toronto, or the Toronto GP that is coming up this week. So I got Nathan here. What's going on, man? How are you doing? How are you feeling after last weekend?
I'm licking my wounds a little bit. I'm feeling unlucky. Would not be a good time for me to go to Vegas right now, but um, it happens, and I'm ready to move forward to Toronto and see what I can scratch back here.
Yeah, man. That I mean, it's still crazy to me. Just both pit stops. For anyone listening, I mean, most of us were obviously high on Joseph Newgarden. He dominates here, so it was. I didn't get to see the first race. So the first race, I didn't capture what exactly happened, but from the feedback you guys were giving me, was he was leading, he was doing everything, and then pit stop issue, something with the pit stops got him. So
It seemed that way because his tire changer, the girl, I think her name's Caitlin Brown. They call it. She's like the goat, kind of right now.
uh-huh.
But she did bobble the tire a little bit. But I guess on TV it looked like kind of an error. But when they actually looked at the data, his pit stop was actually faster than Pato's. But Pato nailed his in lap and out lap so mega that's actually what the difference was. So yeah, for a few days there, it did seem like it was a Newgarden pit stop issue, but kind of more tip your hat to Pato for
Yeah.
just
Hey,
putting
he
his foot
crushed it.
down.
He crushed it.
Yeah,
And I honestly had no interest in going back and rewatching for some reason. I think it also kind of soured what happened on Sunday. But yeah, going into Sunday, yeah, it was. I can't stop thinking about how wild the timing was, and not only that, it was Andretti both times, right as soon as Newgarden pits, and I almost feel for the man right at this point. Like
for sure.
he can't even catch a break. I know I've been pretty vocal about Penske being that team you just cannot trust in so many ways this year. But at the times like that where you know that they have a car at the short oval, they should be able to do it. And not even just Joseph Newgarden, Scott, right? Like he almost got away, almost cleared out of that potential accident. And I just, it's crazy, like Murphy's Law kind of takes over for them. Just everything is going wrong, nothing's going right. And then, unfortunately, for a lot of us, we had Joseph Newgarden as a top three. It looked like he was going to pretty much win the race. He had the best pace, it seemed like, out of all the guys out there, and he just knew he could go drive high line, low line. But it's just crazy. It just sucks. It really does. It really sucks for them. And then willpower, right? Like engine issue. Like what more could have gone wrong for them in that weekend in general? So it's
Yeah, and that was after Saturday. They finished second, third, and fourth. So the weekend started with McLaughlin, wrecking again in like similar to his Indy 500 practice before qualifying, which still hurts me a little bit. But that he came from 27th to finish fourth, I believe, maybe it was fifth, and Power was third or fourth. They were 2, 3, 4. So Newgarden led like I want to say almost 200 laps of the 275 in that race. He led over 50 some percent for the whole weekend. So just kind of crazy. It was kind of ironic because last year Herta essentially lost a race here by when he was pitting. Palou wrecked during his pit stop, and then turns around and then he actually kind of helps Palou win this year by wrecking while Pelot's biggest competition was pitting. So we kind of talked about last week of how the overcut of you want to stay out as long as you can for all your stops, and that was kind of the strategy, and it bit it bit these drivers. It bit Newgarden the first time, and in the second race, and he moved his way through the field again and took the lead. So kind of back to Newgarden for a second, like he had two kind of moments or stints that won him the race. Essentially, um, he got his way past Pelot early on, and then kind of a pit stop, that poor timing. I think it was maybe Ericsson wrecked first, maybe Herta had the first wreck. I don't know, but all Andretti, their right tire failed at some point in the weekend, so that was kind of their average finish was like 20th. It's just a lot of weird stuff. But anyway, Newgarden had his like race winning moments several times where he took control of the race, and for him to still not win is kind of crazy, because several of the Chevrolet cars tried an undercut in the last stint there, which does make sense, even though it's a race you want overcut. When you have such few laps where you don't need, you're not going to use up your tires, you're not going to run out of fuel. It makes sense to go ahead and do that undercut. And Malukas went in first, and he got clean track, and Pato and Newgarden followed, and they were, and Daly also followed, and they were all looking good, feeling good. Alex Palou probably would have honestly finished fifth or sixth had the race stayed green, because he really struggled getting through lap traffic. But to him and Dixon and Armstrong's benefit, they did stay out and stuck it out. And it just worked out for him. Palou was not the best car by any means, but the best car doesn't win every week. And, that was definitely not Palou's, dominant victory that he's shown a few times this year, but, just they played it right and it worked. So there's Palou again.
Yeah, no, for sure. You could even tell, like, as they were starting to hit the traffic, that's how Joseph was able to close the gap. He was able to just maneuver. He knew he had that confidence going into those turns and could take high line, low line. So, like, I had no doubt in my mind he would have won that race. Unfortunately, with the circumstances. But yeah, I was thinking about like some of the other teams, more focused on the second race than I am the first. And again, because I just was having my day at the pool and didn't catch anything. But seeing Christian Lundgaard in the top 6 was kind of interesting. I don't know if that was just a fortunate situation for him. Like I was so focused on what was happening with the Penske and Palou and whoever else that was in front. I was like, wait, Lundgaard really snuck up there. So
yeah, I mean, not to take anything away from him, but that was by a byproduct of, he just kind of rode around in 15 through 18 all day, and then when everyone got screwed on that last caution, he just kind of showed up in 5th place, and then he immediately got eaten up by the people that are around him on the restart, because he doesn't belong there on ovals, really.
And then you got, this should be the story here. Like Abel was 11th, right? You have Schwartzman, he got in the top 10, Lundgaard in the top 6, while some of these others, just didn't have the fortunate situation. So I can't say I'm shocked about like Andretti and where they ended up, though. It is a little surprising. Herta has normally been pretty decent at these short tracks, and he just, this is his season. I feel like his entire season has been this way. So, we're down to 5 races left. And I guess the biggest question I have is like what I've seen through, street course, traditional course, ovals, in even Indy 500, like this is probably what you're going to get the remainder of the 5 races. Like when we would see a guy dominate last year, they're not as dominant this year. I think that is still the case here with, like, mainly I'm kind of speaking to Andretti and Penske, because Penske seems to be okay on the short ovals, but it seemed like even last year, as we got into the hybrid era, they did have their struggles. Even Joseph Newgarden had some situations as well, last season, especially at Toronto, even though he looked strong. But I guess my thing is how am I going to trust anything outside of the two guys we've been talking about for weeks at a time, Palou and Kirkwood? Outside of that, right? Like Dixon, you can always bring to the equation, but at the same time, you still can get a mixed result from that guy because you don't know what strategy he's going to pull at any moment. So,
Yeah.
That's, we got, again, 5 races left. I mean, it's crazy. We're almost done with the season. So, I don't know if
Yeah,
you have
this
a
is
take on
pretty.
that.
Yeah, I would say you're right about we kind of have enough data that it talks at this point of like this is kind of where it is. Aside from Penske a little bit because their season's been so weird, and maybe they're like qualifying on road and street courses, especially the road courses. You could finally say like, okay, they're missing something here, but their pace is still there. Just a ton of bad luck. It's unexplainable. Like I don't know, but Andretti, I would say their short oval performance is really confusing because they might have been the second best team last year
Yep.
on short ovals, really like kind of in a quiet way. But when you look at the results, even Ericsson was doing fine. And I mean, they didn't have it at all in Iowa. Poor qualifying. The first race, they just got ate up, all of them. The second race, they seemed to be a little bit better, but not anything better than like mid pack. So that's really weird to see them take a step back because they took a massive step forward last year, and that was all during hybrid engine time, in the short oval. So it's not like that's thrown them off. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's just been a very weird year, but I think we do have the opportunity to look at the data now and see, okay, we've had 3 or 4 races at each of these track types, and we'll just try to let those speak for themselves.
Yeah, it's kind of hard because now that I'll be shifting over to this weekend, I look at all the odds and I'm like, I just can't look past a few guys, and that's it. Even looking at GridRival, as much as I was tempted to start pushing some cards, I took a step back. Well, one, God, I was just so close this past week, and I think I was off by Felix kind of screwing me in race 1. Otherwise, it would have been a banger day for GridRival. And yeah, and then race 2, I just kind of split it. I only did 2 cards, and I split them. And unfortunately, Power, he had his issue, which I was so confident in that plus 1.5 to Palou. Unfortunately, that did not hit, so I couldn't sweep that weekend. But yeah, it was crushing because I had such a good weekend at Mid Ohio that I was like, oh, we're gonna carry this in, and it was just, yeah, kind of sucks Felix didn't do it. But let's get to Toronto GP, and yeah, tell us about your preview.
Yeah, let me pull that up here. Try to refresh myself quickly. But yeah, IndyCar has been going to this Toronto race. It's our last street course of the year. They've been going here since the kart days in the 80s. And, IndyCar's been here, since 2009. This is their 17th race. They took a little break during COVID. And it's just been a staple on the calendar. Something that was interesting, the pole sitter is winning at an above average rate of 37% in the 16 race history that I looked at. Drivers starting in the first row have won the last 5. And when you look at the podium finishes for drivers on that first row, they I think it's at like an 80% hit rate, and they claim they've claimed over 50% of the podiums in the last 5 years. So the drivers in the first row do really well, and then after that, kind of interesting enough, people have moved up from the early 20s to starting around like 15th to hit the podium. People in the 20s have been able to move up for top five. So this track does have a couple decent passing opportunities. I'd say um, there's a really long straight that where people are going to do most of their damage, kind of like in Long Beach. And then there's one other spot on the opposite side of the track for another little bit shorter straight where people can make moves. So it is tight. It is bumpy. It is a small track. It's we're gonna have lap times under a minute here, and increase the lap count from 85 to 90, I believe. Which every street course so far, most excuse me, most of them we've seen in the past, people would try to do them in two stops, and now adding the laps, the alternate tires on these street courses have been degrading pretty heavily, which I think teams have started to figure out a little better as we went to Long Beach and then Detroit, because they did stay on them a lot longer than they did St. Pete. But you would think this would be a three-stop race. Your favorites are going to be Andretti with Herta and Kirkwood, who really had Herta actually led every session last year, practice one, practice two,
Yeah.
his qualifying session, and then he won the race from pole. So he kind of swept the weekend, which from the data I have, I haven't seen anyone else do. So pretty impressive there. And Kirkwood was kind of right behind him. And then Ganassi's pretty strong here. Dixon does really well. Palou always finishes well, but interestingly enough, Palou has never qualified better than 15th.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, one of those was a penalty for blocking, just because it's a small track. So, he's only raced here 3 times, so it's not like he has a long history of that. But kind of surprising, he's never even advanced. But he's still been good. I think he's fourth, second, and sixth are his finishes. And then Penske's also been pretty decent here. I think Newgarden has 1 or 2 wins. McLaughlin's been in the Fast Six or near it, and all 3 of his attempts. So there are a lot of teams bringing some strength here, but I think it does start with Andretti and their potential to hold Palou behind them if they have that pace they've shown not only last year but this year in Long Beach and Detroit especially.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think that was something I was calling out. And it was said earlier this year, like Andretti seems to have the right grip levels when it comes to these street courses, which is why you saw Kirkwood and even going back to the year prior too, like he was doing pretty well. Herta was doing well as well. My only issues just goes back to what we've been talking about. Is like, oh man, Herta, you think should be on paper the one you target. How do I trust that? Because he's had his struggles throughout the year, even had his unfortunate situations in pits, whatever the situation. He just seems that he's lacking the pace. Sometimes the strategy is just not right. Things are going wrong. So it's the falling knife, situation. Do I try to catch it and actually, like for instance, GridRival right now has them at 3.5, which is the highest I've seen it in God knows how long, right? This year.
Yeah.
I can't, I mean, my mind is saying, well, technically, yes, but I can't stop looking at Kirkwood because he just seems to be the guy that is just steady Eddie when it comes to these street courses right now, even the road courses. He seems to be doing just great. So when it comes to Andretti, I don't know how much I can trust Herta, but seeing the odds, it kind of favors you. And I think some people were posting the top 3. Let me see. One of them posted, like Herta is at -105 while Kirk was at even money. Like to me, I'm like, damn, I would want to take Kirkwood because I just trust him a little bit more. I get why they're pricing him, at -105, but to be quite honest with you, Herta should be even money while Kirkwood should be like -110 at minimum. That's kind of where my
Yeah.
mind went. Felix, I know last year he was actually pretty damn strong before he had that moment where he just overshot and even blocked out Ericsson, who was, I think, in the top 10 at that time too. So he kind of screwed his race. So the results don't really reflect what he can do this weekend. I also saw a tweet from Tony. Tony was he put 50 to 1 on Marcus Armstrong with that Meyer Shank. So it's pretty fun. I applaud his enthusiasm to have Meyer Shank in there and having it be Marcus Armstrong. Will he do it? Kind of hard for me to say he will with Pillow and Kirkwood up there.
Yeah, and actually, that's the only two people I'm on right now at this point. The books have shifted this year, where they used to be so finicky. Kind of, they would look at if the last couple of races were an oval, and maybe Herta and Kirkwood didn't have good races. Well, they would go ahead and roll them into like a 8 to 1 or a 10 to 1 here. And they've done a good job, unfortunately, this year where they look more at the track history. And so, like last year, I got Newgarden at like 8 to 1 in St. Louis, which is insane. I got Andretti cars at 10 to 1 on street courses, and this year they're pricing it so well where it's just like they are the favorites. I do expect them to be up there, but just right now, especially on street courses, there's one small mistake will ruin your day in qualifying, and to have them at 3 to 1 is hard to buy into right now. And so that's why Meyer Shank, if you look at their performance on street courses this year, and then also both Armstrong and Rosenquist's history at Toronto, it's actually pretty impressive. So at the numbers, I think you can get Rosenquist at 30 to 1 and Armstrong, like you said, at 50 to 1. And then as far as podium, you can get 7 to 1 for Rosenquist and like a 12 to 1 for Armstrong.
Yeah.
So they are long shots, but
I like those at those numbers though. Like when you're talking to those numbers, I mean they're much better for sure. Yeah.
Because at this point I'm barely bought in financially. I'm at 0.1 units so far at risk, so I have plenty of room to add a Pillow or an Andretti car that I feel strongly about later in the weekend. And so I've got my eyes on McLaughlin a little bit. He's at 8 to 1, but like you said, you can't trust Penske, but his stats even this year as far as qualifying, that would suggest that's not a bad number at 8 to 1. I haven't done that, and I might not, but so I do feel like overall the strategy would just be kind of sit and wait and keep an eye on the data and just an eye test of who looks good between Herta, Kirkwood, and Pillow, and kind of just pick one, or if we're lucky enough to get the odds to pick two of them up there, then
I am totally with you on that. Like that is definitely something. One other thing is last year they had the green alternate compounds. It was a little bit warmer and it was a primary race, right? So you want to find the guys that had one. Going back to that is if you wait, especially like leading up to the hour before, seeing who has the tires. So number one, I don't know what's going to be different from last year to this year. I'm expecting it's going to be the same in terms of tires, but the performance of those green alternates did not last but like maybe 8 laps of like true performance before like there was a huge drop off after 10-12 laps. Like you would fall back really far. So Scott had to do an alternate strategy and he was up ahead. I truly believe if they didn't do that strategy, he would have probably been in the top 3 for sure last year. They just they rolled the dice. It didn't work, and they had to live with their mess throughout the race, basically in that situation. But that's something I want to try to make sure I also pay attention to leading into the races when we get those tire compounds. Well, number one, in the practices, let's see how these, reds are going to be performing. Will they get more than 8 laps? If so, then that might not matter as much as we saw like last year. So the flexibility in your strategy could be a little bit different. But if it's the same, I think it's worthwhile to, take on fading the guys that are up in the top 10, top 15 even, that start on that alternate, to say they may get a few spots early on, but they've got to last X amount of stints. They're not going to last long. Obviously, the cautions will change things, but that is one thing I want to eye. And going back to the data, I will be around. I will be able to try to capture practice data with those sectors, because I think that was super helpful for me, at least with Mid Ohio, to be able to just go session by session, seeing the optimal sector times from each driver, seeing that consistency throughout each session, even through qualifying, to validate like, yep, this guy has some speed or this guy doesn't. That's what gave me that confidence in Lundgaard to say, like, no doubt in my mind, top 3 was just, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to even hesitate. And especially at even money, I'm hoping to validate that again this weekend. And I'm just hoping we don't have this crazy variability throughout the weekend. So
a straightforward race would be a welcome change this year, but we'll see. I was looking back through everything, and actually at some points all the Penske's looked pretty good, and Power took out McLaughlin at one point. And
that's right. That's right.
That McLaughlin was due for a good result still. I think maybe top 5 or something, and Power had worked his way up and shoved it in there and threw McLaughlin into the wall and ruined his day. And then Power got a penalty, which ruined his day.
Mm-hmm.
But I had some notes that Power said this is actually one of his lesser enjoyable tracks, in just the sense that he just struggles here. But it's hard to fade him, because he's a guy that can qualify in 15, 16 because he struggles, but also can finish 7th or 8th, which if you're looking for a matchup, it's just tough when you have a guy like that can move up in the race. But he did also say in that he really thinks both of the Scots are really good here, and the stats do back that up. So Dixon's awesome here, and McLaughlin's been good so far. I'm thinking Dixon and Ferrucci are really due for a grid penalty any race now. They've been at the same engine number since Detroit, which is the race after the 500. So with just 5 races to go, I don't know how much longer that last engine. I would have thought it would have been for the oval, because people kind of like to take the grid penalties for ovals because the spots are easier to make up. But we don't have another oval for another 3 races, so I don't think anyone can hold on for another 3 races for the last engine. And also, it wouldn't be efficient use of a brand new engine either to use it for 2 races. So you can't necessarily fade Dixon because he's magical at starting 20th and finishing 5th, but it's definitely a reason to not take him now, even though I believe he could be a real strong contender in this race. And then Ferrucci, just to move on that, the same note, that I think he could get that grid penalty, and his average qualifying on street courses this year has been in the 20s. And so if you get that grid penalty paired with his, qualifying anywhere, I think his best qualifying was like 18th or 19th. So he's also a guy that can move up and, have a decent result. He does it often. So it's kind of 2 hard guys to fade, but I did try to fade Ferrucci on GridRival and just, see if that sticks.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it, and I'm glad you brought that up, because now that makes me more inclined to want to fade him. I like the little tidbit you brought up about what Will Power said. Well, funny enough, I actually last night was like, oh, they have the promo for Colton Herta. So I said, I'm going to just throw this random one out. So I did Colton on his promo 10.5. Obviously, I'm going to take the better on that. Um,
Yeah.
and then Rasmussen worse 14.5. Daly worse 16.5. Felix better 9.5. I threw in Rossi better. This is kind of like I'm going to go a little contrarian on this. I think, I feel like I'm always on the other. When I want to fade him, he does better. When I want to say he does better, he faded him. So I was initially thinking, oh, I'm going to fade him, but I'm like, no, we're going to do the opposite of that. So I'm playing mind games with myself
There you go.
and with Erickson too. So is it going to hit? Probably not. But last week I did the same exact thing. I picked 6 drivers for that promo. I think it was Newgarden, the 10.5 promo. I hit every single one, but guess what? Dixon didn't get under 7. That's right.
I could that one hurt too. I can't believe he. And of course, the next race he finishes third or second or
Right.
something. And he didn't even have a great day. But yeah, that I lost just a 2 card
Oh,
on that. But
disappointing.
yeah, that pretty
So it's,
disappointed in Scott Dixon there. I don't. I mean, that's that number at like 7 or 8 is just a nice
it was
like
good. It was great. I loved it.
yeah.
I thought the one I was like, who I'm not sure about was um probably the Kirkwood and Daly, because sometimes I feel like, when especially Kirkwood, I'm like, oh, when I try to fade him, he finds a way, like something, he gets something in there. I couldn't believe that. But yeah, Dixon and Felix were two of the guys that I really needed to show up. We were going to get paid a lot, and they both failed. But then, like you said, the next race, they were in the top 10. Like, I'm like, you're kidding me. Like,
Yeah,
so,
Felix was really rough. I mean, he had great speed in qualifying, and then Felix just had. I mean, he was getting passed all weekend from essentially the start. So I don't know what was up with that.
yeah,
He's
I
normally
mean,
better, but
hey, listen, it happens. This is why we play the game. I'm still up technically with Grid Rival, but yes, let's talk. Uh, well, first off, before we get into Grid Rival, why don't you tell us all your plays that you have bets this weekend, and then we can then move over to Grid Rival.
yeah. So I just like I said, I found Rosenquist at 30 to 1 and Armstrong at 50 to 1, and so I just did zero point zero 0.05 units since they're such long shots on both of them there. Um, and then I added Rosenquist podium for zero point 0.2 units at 7 to 1. And then I found a group with both Rosenquist and Armstrong, who Armstrong's all the way up to at plus 300 in this group, which I really like. It's for basically Meyer Shank to beat out Ericsson and Malukas, which, that Ericsson and Malukas could both have decent weekends here. Malukas
Yeah.
has looked really good at Detroit, and Ericsson has had a terrible year, but that he is an Andretti car. So I just really, literally all my bets so far are just backing the 2 Meyer-Shank cars. And then that, aside from that, I have my grid rival plays. I went ahead and threw 4 of them in there. I took Scott McLaughlin better than 6.5 with Connor Daly worse than 16.5. I don't think Connor Daly has hit this number in any street course yet. And he's talked about all year how Juncos is terrible on the primary tires. Their balance is just not there. They can be pretty quick on the alternates or at short ovals, but um, they're when these are primary races, they really just don't have the pace. Next card, Rosenquist again, better than 9.5. I love that number for him. I took Pato worse than 7.5. Pato's been really good as of late. That's a kind of a tough number. I would have liked to seen a little shorter, but he has not just been good on street courses this year, especially in qualifying. He's just kind of put himself back there. So that's kind of a prove it number for me. I took Ferrucci worse than 12.5 on another card. That's, like I said, hoping for a grid penalty and another poor qualifying performance. With Armstrong better than 10.5. So I, if I like Armstrong, to win, then I definitely like him to get top 10. Last card would be Newgarden better than 7.5 with Rasmussen worse than 14.5. Um, yeah, I mean, gonna just I'm just have 0.25 units on all these cards, so I do have a couple Penske's in there, which might hurt some people just to see and pain inside, but they are good here. They have Newgarden's actually been pretty good at all the street courses until something goes wrong. So I'm hoping in one of 4 street courses something can just stay straightforward from him. Which actually, now I think about it, he podiumed at St. Pete, so that was a long time ago, but he has had good performances here and this year on street courses. And lastly, Rasmussen fading him. Just I faded him last week because I said he was going to wreck, and he did. But he kept his car clean and then raced amazing after that. So he didn't wreck enough to win that piece, but his car broke really early on last year after a poor qualifying, and he didn't get to race here. So he doesn't have much experience here.
Mm-hmm.
Ed Carpenter's kind of all over the place, and I believe his street courses, Rasmussen has finished 24th, 18th, and 15th this year. And if you go back to last year, he's finished 27th, 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 and 21st. So he's actually never hit this number in his whole career on street courses. But he is definitely way improved than he was last year. So it's possible, but I'm going to make him prove it.
I dig that because I also had that as part of one of those. Just that's the crazy card. I'm not going to even like justify. I just was throwing some stuff together. But as you were talking, I said I'm tempted to do like your top tens, but I think for a card I'd like to maybe go into the weekend with might be that Daily Rasmussen worse with Felix better. I think that has caught my attention. Now the question is do I've been kind of into the 3-card stuff because hey, it worked out for Mid Ohio. Do I do it 3-card? Do I just go in 2-card just to play it safe? And if so, should I just keep it the 2 donkeys at worst, or do I split it? What do you think?
I kind of like the 3 card there. I mean,
I kind of do too. Kind of do too,
just
man.
that multiplier goes up so much,
Mm-hmm.
and there's some of for Daly and Rasmussen to still not hit these numbers after this year when we've had people like Penske not get results.
Yeah.
That's these mid pack guys, or a little worse than the mid pack. Their numbers are going to decline the second that Penske starts simply getting results, which I don't know when that's going to happen because this has been insane. But eventually, these good drivers that we know are going to get back into form and start finishing top even 15. And these guys like Daly and Rasmussen, they're not going to sneak top 15 results unless they just have a hell of a day. So
I'm loving it. So I am going to do then Daily worst 16.5, Rasmussen worst 14.5, and Felix better because I truly believe Felix is going to do much better here. Outside of what happened last year, he was doing pretty well. So, and
I think he spent over half the race top 5, top 3. So
and
he's good here.
I can't remember what race. It was early on when we were like, we used to be that type where Meyershank qualifies well and then they just fade right through the race. But then we saw week over or race over race, we're like, wait, actually, maybe they fixed the issue of whatever that was happening. Most likely tire drag issue goes back to maybe setups. They might have fixed that, and if we're already pretty bullish on Armstrong and the way they did last year, and he was pretty consistent last year here, I think it's worth it. So I'm going to lock it in. That is going to be my 3-card, probably my only one. However, I'm going to tease you on this one, okay? Because I've been eyeing this for GridRival. Back markers. I really believe the opportunity is there for us. Again, I've been calling this out where we've constantly seen Abel, maybe Stingray, whatever, in the 23s. Okay. They will, I'm not basing this off of their performance. I'm just saying I'm basing this off of chaos. There is going to be chaos. He will just naturally hit the number as long as he avoids and he's all the way in the back, right? Like if he can't get in front, he's not going to, he has to fuck it up himself, basically. Looking back at some of the previous results, I didn't want to go to 2022 because I think there were only 25 cars. However, there were 5 DNF, I think 4 DNFs in 2022 at Toronto. Last year, you saw that, we had chaos that happened last year. And then I think it was 2023. Let me see very quickly. You had another case. I mean, it was like almost 10 cars DNF. I really believe naturally Abel at 23 and a half is a play to do. And maybe it's just a matter of I'm afraid to do Stingray Raw because he gets aggressive and he overdrives and then he ends up wrecking. But I'm going to do better with him. Now the question is who do I pair that with? I'm not going to do a 3-card on that one. Do I pair it with a back marker or do I take a chance on someone up front? And then lastly, where do you think Devlin ends up?
Yeah, no, I looked at that also as far as playing Abel or Stingray. And I almost got carried away with like just putting them all together, but one of them, almost with Ilot too, he's been pretty disappointing this year. But you can't. I don't know that I'd necessarily want to take that all of them would go one direction, and it'd be hard to pick which one would keep their car out of the mess and which one would, find the mess. But so I think he'd be better off going with like Armstrong or maybe backing McLaughlin at his number, I think, which is like 6.5. So,
okay.
I mean, I like Armstrong for a top 10. He finished 5th here last year. He was 7th 2 years ago in his first race here. He was 6th at Detroit.
He was 6th at Detroit this year, right?
Yeah. And then St. Pete, he was running at the front and then he wrecked. But Long Beach, he was 14th.
He was 14th.
But he qualified 7th. So, if he...
Yeah. Maybe what I'll do, because if I'm going to pair the top pairs, I think there's a correlation between Lundgaard, Scott McLaughlin, and Pato, kind of to your point. Now I'm kind of seeing that vision with maybe Pato is the fade here, especially if you like Lundgaard. So you can have so many guys in the 6 and 7 spot, right? So 5, 6, 7 spot. So I feel like that could be Christian, Scott, and then Pato is the one that's like 8th, 9th, whatever. So I want to keep those kind of bucketed, but I think what I'll do is Abel with Armstrong and just pair that and hope and pray. Maybe that's the one. Or, like you said, we can always just go back and we could just put all the back markers and say better, 22 and a half, 23 and a half, and let it just naturally happen and see what, it's going to be a card you're probably going to be wasting, but you never know. We could probably see some chaos somewhere in the mid pack, the top of up in the grid, and you got a card that just hit just by doing nothing. So I like it.
Yeah, no, I like that. Lastly, on Dev, it's his home race, but it hasn't really been kind to him. He did actually qualify 12th his rookie year here, but he finished 18th, and then he finished 23rd in 2023, and then this year he's been 22nd, 24th, and 23rd in street courses. Um, yeah, I don't. I mean, they have him at a pretty low number, but he's just been
I
even
won't
when
mess
he's
with it. I won't mess
yeah
with it because he seems to always yeah. But he's just at a high number, that's why. But I'll consider it as like we'll see what happens. Um, yeah, I won't mess with it. Okay. Anything else with the pick'em side? Let's see.
nope. I'm gonna. I went for it with 4 cards. I'm probably gonna stick with that, and I hope we get qualifying. I don't even know that I'll be available for it, but I've just been kind of sad to see qualifying and matchups kind of disappear from GridRival. But
They had matchups.
yeah, for Iowa, the
The first
second
race,
race.
second
Was
race.
it the
Okay,
first?
yeah, I saw that, but I didn't really like any of them, to be honest with you. So, well, let's move to the fantasy league. How about that? I love that. In the first race, 3 of our guys, top 3, like I don't think we could have done any better with who we picked. And in the second race, I mean, for me, it wasn't terrible, but it also wasn't the greatest. But I'm in the top 5, man. I went from
Yeah, I saw that.
I went from all the way in the 50s at the beginning of the year to now I'm in the top 5. So now I feel the pressure. I got to make sure I make every selection perfect. So
Yeah, I was top 15, I think, after race 1, and then really bad race 2 all around. Maxwell just passed me to now in 17th. So, but yeah, the race 1 was pretty awesome with fixed that step in there too for man. I think I had one of the highest like scores
you
that
did
has been put up like all year. So
almost
that just went
1,000 points, I think you
yeah.
had.
Which I tried to look through like the big IndyCar league, and a guy had like 1,050 or something one race, which is pretty insane. But
Crazy. Crazy.
yeah, I gave quite a bit of it back on race 2, unfortunately, but still sneaking on up. Somebody needs to catch Garrett though. You know, we can't let the F1 guy.
I know. I don't know.
Um,
The dude is just good at fantasy. Let me just tell you. Like
yeah,
I wasn't sure how he was going to perform in IndyCar, but look at him. He doesn't know much about these guys, but he just knows GridRival. So that's just kind of a testament to him and his work that he does with just everything. It's really good stuff from him. So
for sure. Yeah, it's impressive. He's got a nice cushion too. So
yeah.
uh,
But what I did was who did I sign on? I can't tell who. Oh, okay. I had to pick 5 new drivers because my whole thing reset. So I still have Pillow for one more race, which is so unfortunate because I was like, damn, I really wanted him for Laguna Seca, but it's okay. I'll just have to deal with it. So I think one of the guys that I'm taking a chance on, he may not do well this weekend, but I just wanted to sign him on for the rest of the season because we have ovals coming up, is Malukas. So I'm thinking of, even if he doesn't do well, he's up 1 million from the last race. He might lose me a little bit. I'm thinking about it. However, maybe the smarter thing is if I don't feel like he's going to do well here, then I should probably sign on someone else for one race and bring him on for the next race. But that's one guy. And then I'm not going to lie, I'm Andretti stacked for one race.
yep,
And then
same.
I got Herta for one more race, or I think I just put him on for one race, and then I have Kirkwood for 2 because I do not want any Andretti for when we do the oval push here in the last three races that we would have.
Yep.
And then Lundgaard, I signed him on for just 2 races because again, I feel like he has that weakness with ovals. So I figure like, let's just sign him on for the next 2. He's going to do pretty well here, and we'll reassess. So that's how I've stacked my team so far. I've given up my cards, but it's okay. I'm just trying to.
Yeah, I
trying to
went
get the
Andretti heavy too. Obviously, I bought into some Rosenquist still, but I can't believe Armstrong has moved his way up to the fourth highest salary. Like
I
that's wild. Just kind of
Which
shows how sneaky good he's been this year. He's really been like a
I just
nice
can't do it
cash
at
cow
that
for us.
number. I can't do it
No,
at
it's a
that
little high.
number.
Yeah, especially when you could get Kirkwood and Herta for cheaper, both of them. So
Yeah.
and even Lundgaard, which for Lundgaard did win this race in Toronto, but he got the pole off of a rain qualifying, and so I don't know that he actually had the pace to be the fastest car, but that's how he got his first career win. But um, yeah, and Malukas though he qualified sixth and finished sixth here last year, so he was actually pretty strong to close out the year on the road courses when he came back,
Yeah.
and he started to get back in that form this year with he qualified well at Road America and Detroit. He almost had pole there, so no, I think Malukas is a good play for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and another reason why I don't really have that many. I wanted to do Felix, but I just had him signed off, so he's locked for one race. So I've got a few guys that are locked. Well, one thing is fun is most of them are Penske guys, so that gives me okay. I don't have to take them and risk anything. So, but I think that's where I'm gonna stack up right now. Unfortunately, I can't have Pelot the next race, but we'll figure it out. It's fine. Um, but I think that's how I'm stacking up right now. So I've gotten into the groove of like making sure that I'm picking the right individuals for the amount of races. So if you're listening and you play fantasy on GridRival, obviously it's the only one to use for IndyCar, which is great and fantastic. Uh, yeah, you just got to be strategic and look ahead of the calendar and see where the strengths and weaknesses are for these drivers and position yourself to be able to put those drivers in a situation where you can use them for the road courses and then move them off whenever it gets to ovals if they're not strong there, vice versa. So
Yeah, and I think we gave a disclaimer kind of start this year that it was especially for me, it was new to me. So when I'm trying to give strategy, maybe I don't always have the best way, but in my mind at this point, you can kind of start to worry less about building your salary and just
yeah,
start building
full
your
send.
best lineup. Yeah,
Yep, full
just
send at
even
this
if you
point.
think, yeah, if you Pelot, I mean, if you don't think Pelot is going to help your salary, obviously it's hard for him to, but you just want points at this point.
Mhm.
So if you have the room for it, you just start kind of picking the best drivers and see how it works out for you.
And the opportunity also from a scoring perspective, which I didn't truly pay too much attention to until here is F1 is the same way, which is overtaking points are really big. They're huge. So Pelot at the salary he was at, the points you would get out of him were actually not. It was like they weren't going to be as much for you. Like he could win the race, but he wasn't having to overtake anyone. So you ended up with like maybe 160 points, which is great. But you can pick another guy that had a lower salary that may have started somewhere else, and he's having to do all these overtake, and he gets you more points and more salary. So like thinking about it when you go into next year, those are things that we'll be definitely like pushing on. And I have familiarity with this type of, way that they do fantasy. I just didn't know how it would work with IndyCar and like how different it was going to be because F1 used to do it in that similar format before they changed to their ridiculous one on the F1 site. So shout out to GridRival. Thank you for creating a great product when it comes to fantasy and pick'ems. But please, please, if you're listening, which you're probably not, let's get those qualifying. Let's get some free practice next year. Like let's make it enjoyable. So yeah.
So yeah, and then also, good rival, if you're listening, please come to Indiana. So
Yeah. Oh, that too. That too. That too. Yeah. So any last words or anything like that you have?
no, I'm real driven to kind of turn the season, which is turn it back around. I've got a couple units waiting for me on Pelosi Championship, so that'll be nice. But
Yeah.
otherwise, I think I can get this season in good shape. So it's been rough, but
Hey
still, I
man,
think we got.
I'm with you there in F1. It's just been like highs and lows constantly. fuckery kind of plays in its hands sometimes. And I agree. IndyCar has not been easy this year. It really hasn't. It's been one of those years when you have this type of volatility. From a viewer's perspective, you might like it, except it kind of sucks because you're constantly seeing Palou and Kirkwood, but like the rest of the field. So, but that definitely does play in hands when it comes to your bets, because we're doing a lot more matchups and stuff like that. So,
Yeah, it's been weird. I don't like my podium. Historically, I hit my podium plays on about 50%. This year, I think I'm like 4 for 28. I mean, I can't buy one this year.
yeah.
Part of that is it's hard to, Palou is taking up a lot of those podium spots at prices that you can't really buy into, so that's part of it. But yeah, and like ovals are just have always been a huge money maker for me, and this year they've been my biggest losers. So normally I just my units blow up on the ovals, but they are draining me this year. So
Hey, we got
just
five
weird, but
races. We got 5 races, full send. We're gonna do it. I believe. I believe. So, yeah.
yeah, I'm motivated to find it. So we'll keep looking for the winners.
Yep. All right. Well, we'll see you this weekend, and we'll see anyone in the Discord that's listening. So.
Right on.